Marcy. Well, good morning, everyone. Let's get this thing organized. Welcome. Last month we ran into a bit of an issue with the President's Day holiday and all sorts of things, so I apologize to anyone who came last month and didn't get the message. We try and keep everybody informed. And we're also thinking about making these breakfasts, rather than the third Wednesday of each month, moving it to the first Wednesday of each month. And no matter what, we're going to conflict with some other organization's presentation. There's not much we're going to be able to do about that. But welcome, everybody. It's a beautiful morning here in the Northeast. We're supposed to get up into the mid-50s today. Daylight savings time starts this weekend, and spring is less than 2 weeks away, and the Mets have already lost their first game. So all is right with the world. This morning we have some really interesting and timely presentations that I think you're all going to enjoy. What we try and do here at these breakfasts is bring a mix of local entrepreneurs, education, and a foreign perspective as well. So this morning's presenters are going to be Ajax Greene from Belay, who's going to talk about B Corps and all sorts of other good stuff. We have Diane Dintruff, who's going to discuss some local goings on as far as green and river and etc. And then we have our colleague from Greece, and one of his good friends and colleagues, Kostas, is going to talk to us about crowdfunding in Europe, which is becoming very popular and is actually working. And so we're excited about that. What I'd always like to do is I'd like to introduce our sponsors to you. Without our sponsors, these breakfasts would not be possible. So we encourage you to see who they are, patronize them, call them. We're constantly adding to this list, which is a wonderful thing, and we encourage you to solicit their business. They have some exciting products and services that they would be happy to discuss with you, and in some cases you get a nice discount because you mentioned our name. So thanks so much for them and for your business to them. We have some new partnerships this month to announce, one of which is a group called Agreon. I had the pleasure of meeting with the Agreon folks last week, and they are an international network of energy and clean tech professionals. And they are having an event at a Manhattan facility called Green Spaces, which is a wonderful little place, not so little, down in the bowels of Manhattan. And there's a networking event and a presentation event coming up relatively soon, which we would love to invite our entrepreneurs, companies who are related and affiliated with us, and those who want to network to attend this event. Agreon, iCAN-Ny, and Green Spaces is a co-working community for environmental and social entrepreneurs, have partnered to create a lively, fun, clean tech-focused pitch competition with some great rewards. The prize will be a coveted slot to present your business to an audience of investors and clean tech professionals at the Wall Street Green Summit, which is a huge deal, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute, as well as a complimentary ticket to day 2 of New York's premier energy and environmental finance event. This is a $1,500 value for the winner of this competition. Agreon will also throw in a few membership perks to winners, offering exposure to a network of over 200,000 clean tech and energy professionals worldwide. A panel of judges will slice and dice the pitches through 3 rounds, and you've already heard what the prize is. This is a wonderful opportunity. If anyone is interested in attending, Al? I'd be happy to. Anybody who wants an email copy of this presentation, let us know. We'd be happy to send the information or give you the link so you can sign up directly. It'll be a great networking event, and we encourage everyone to attend. Next on the list is the aforementioned Wall Street Green Summit, which is being held March 19 and 20 down in the Wall Street area. I dare say it's kind of a pricey event, but there'll be investors, presenters, clean tech folks from all over the world converging on Wall Street for this event. And if you have any interest in funding, presenting, pitching, networking to clean tech executives, dare say this is going to be the place to be. Our colleague Lars Ling, who you've heard here before from Sweden, is going to be presenting at that event, so I'll be carrying his suitcase if he lets me. And it's going to be a wonderful couple of days here in Lower Manhattan. So I encourage you to look this stuff up as well and do whatever you can to participate. As well, there is the New York State business plan competition coming up, and there's actually a call for entries right now. And this is in concert with our partners at the Nanoscale College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering. It's with the Lally School at RPI and Syracuse University. This competition has grown in scope. This year, there are over $100,000 in cash prizes and $20,000 in in-kind prizes. And you'll be judging from, the judging is being done by a rather impressive list of investors, entrepreneurs, business people, and academics. I just got the list last night, and it is very impressive this year. So if this is something any one of you would like to present at or participate in by being in the audience and just listening and taking notes, again, let us know. We'll be happy to supply you with the link to this event, and I think you'll be very glad you did. As many of you know, it's not me. We have a partnership with the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering called iCANny. iCANny is a NYSERDA supported partnership, and we've been very, very happy with that association. And I just wanted to kind of give you folks an update as to what iCANny has meant, not just for us, but for companies here in the Hudson Valley. To date, iCANny has been in operation for about a year and a quarter. In that year and a quarter, there are now 17 companies associated with iCANny. And that's huge. iCANny companies have raised and been responsible for raising almost $40 million in equity funding during the last year and a quarter, which is a testament to the quality of the company, the kind of technologies that are being developed, the management teams, and yes, the guidance that they get from us and from mentors and executives. Requirements for being an iCANny company are, A, you have to be a New York State company. Your technology must be centered around energy efficiencies, clean tech, green, and ultimately be able to be commercialized here in New York State in order for New York State to meet its overall energy goals and their stated goals from 2015 to 2020. So we're looking to commercialize these technologies as rapidly as possible, get these technologies implemented, in place, up and running, so that everyone benefits, including New York State. So if anyone you know has a company that's involved Doesn't have to be a startup. It can be a more mature company. Actually, one of the companies in iClean has already completed its IPO and is still a member of iClean and still receiving assistance. So it's a dynamic program. We're very picky about who joins iClean and the circumstances, and there's a lot of benefits that come along with being an iClean company, and we're proud to be associated with that whole program. Today's presentation is about one of my favorite topics, passion. I've been accused from time to time of letting my passion take over from my business sense, and sometimes it goes the other way. And some people say it's a weakness. I don't happen to think so. I think if you don't have passion in what you do, you're probably not going to be successful. But passion is what drives us. It's what causes those sleepless nights. What instigates those stupid tweets about us that confuse passion from competence. And you know those anonymous tweets that say something like, "When are you going to provide a good living for my daughter?" You know, remember those tweets? There's lots of those. So I'm the recipient of a lot of those. But passion nonetheless is what drives us. It's what makes things happen. It's what makes us entrepreneurs. The most successful innovators are consistently portrayed as possessing a passion that borders on dogmatism. We work tirelessly to bend reality to achieve our vision. Steve Jobs really coined the phrase, the reality distortion field. And he is the prototype example of how passion can drive a technology and an industry. There's no doubt that passion is a critical component of innovation. After all, innovation is awfully hard work, with plenty of false starts, plenty of failures, but it's those successes. Anyone who plays golf, and I don't really play golf, I play at it. You play 18 holes, you hit balls everywhere, but it's that one shot up the middle that keeps you coming back the next time. Rosabeth Moss Cantor from Harvard teaches us that everything can look like a failure in the middle. Mike Tyson, a brilliant scholar, puts it another way. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Passion is necessary to keep pushing when the punch inevitably lands. And without passion, it's hard to do something that's meaningfully different from what's been done before. I mean, isn't that the goal? To be disruptive, to be different, to differentiate yourself from everything else that's out there? If it's next to impossible to prove that a new idea will work until you either do it, prove that it can't or shouldn't be done, and move on to the next thing. Passion and intuition are necessary ingredients for disruptive success. But leaders overseeing of innovation, the effort is inside their companies, need to be careful of mistaking passion for competence. The philosopher George Santayana defined a fanatic as someone who redoubles their effort when they have forgotten their aim. We've all encountered the innovator who keeps pounding the table, insisting that his vision is right, despite mounting evidence and bills suggesting that's not exactly the case. Been there, done that. Passion only matters if it leads to an innovation that delivers impact, whether that impact is measured in revenues, profits, improved process performance, or something entirely different. This is one reason why good venture capital investors dole out capital in stages. They're waiting to see if the vision that looks so great on paper bears any resemblance to reality. When we're evaluating entrepreneurs and their ideas, we look for innovation bipolarity, a version of F. Scott Fitzgerald's first-rate intelligence, which is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Entrepreneurs should be able to argue passionately that their idea will change the world, and then, without skipping a beat, honestly assess the risks standing in the way of its success and describe what they're doing to mitigate them. Of course, there are examples of dogmatism and fanaticism triumphing in the way of healthy skepticism, but that's not a scalable approach to innovation. I mean, here we've had several discussions about what drives innovation and innovators. So if you've been here before, you've heard a lot of that stuff. Over the years, we've interviewed many an entrepreneur who's demonstrated passion for their endeavor, but lack of commitment necessary to follow through. You know, there's an exception in the room today. My friend Sushil Bhatia, sitting back here, was our second client at HVCFI. And I must say, I must confess, a long time ago, we gave Sushil up for who knows what was going to happen. But there's a guy with stick-to-itiveness, determination, and a whole lot of passion. And I'm glad he's here this morning. I'm glad his company is still alive and well, and we're thrilled to see you, so thank you. And that's kind of what happens here. We help drive passion. We fuel that innovation. And you know, if there's any way we can help any of you, we'd love to be able to do that. Business is littered with companies, both failures and successes, that have built their entire existence on passion. The We Try Harder logo that Avis did a whole bunch of years ago was built on the notion of passion. We have to try harder because we're number two. They're still number two, and they're still trying. But this is what fuels us as entrepreneurs. This is what causes those sleepless nights. This is what causes the angst when you know you got a payroll on Friday morning and you don't have any money in the bank. This is something that can't be taught, I don't believe. You can't learn it from a book. And some of the most honest entrepreneurs I know are those of us who have lost some things over the years and aged a little bit, but the ride and the trip is worth everything. So thank you for that. Our next presenter is a long-time participant in these breakfasts. And it's been much too long since we've asked Ajax to speak. And Ajax is going to bring his talk, and he didn't bring any slides, so if you were here last month and heard Annette Kramer say that we don't need stinking slides, we should be able to do this and just talk about what we're going to do, well, Ajax is going to take that advice and he's going to deliver his presentation naked. All yours, Ajax. You know, not all the way, just almost all the way. There you go.
Good morning. I get to do two one-hour talks in about 15 minutes. So, and what was interesting about that is my horoscope said this morning that there was going to be room for miscommunication in my day. So I'll leave plenty of room for questions and answers at the end because I think I'll raise a lot of questions. So I hope you'll jot them down or remember them. So two separate talks, very, very different actually. First, I'm going to be talking about the new B Corporation law that's been passed in New York. Let me give just a brief background. There were three fellows that were all roommates at Stanford. Two went on to found a company called AND1, which when they exited was doing about $350 million in revenue, selling basketball shoes and apparel. The other fellow went into private equity. They all had done exits. They came back together, years later and said, "Oh, we're in this great place. What do we want to do? We want to make a difference with the rest of their life." They founded a not-for-profit called B Lab. B Lab became the certifying organizations for B corporations, and I haven't defined B corporations yet, so give me a moment. So I was one of the first companies to be certified by B Lab. But now what they've done is they're going through state by state and passing new corporate law, 7 states, Maryland, Vermont, Virginia, Hawaii, New Jersey, California, and New York, have all passed the B Corporation law. What is a B Corporation? It functions identically as either a B Corp or a S or a C Corporation. LLCs are a little bit different. LLCs are governed by contract law, not corporate law, so they're different. But this is focused on corporations. Now, why is this an issue? What's this all about? Well, if we use the Ben & Jerry's example, if you were to talk to Ben Cohen, even though he walked away with millions after they sold Ben & Jerry's to Unilever, he views it as a failure, that it was a forced sale based on shareholder lawsuits around maximizing profit. And so the concept of B corporations is that companies should have the legal right to undertake other missions other than solely focusing on shareholder return. And so the idea is B stands for benefit. So the idea is that you place equal emphasis on profit as well as social return or societal benefit, oftentimes referred to as community or environmental. Those tend to be sort of the more popular areas, although there's no requirement that it be those. But it needs to be a balanced approach, and you can actually, instead of being sued for not making enough money, you could actually be sued by shareholders for not doing a public benefit. And so a lot of the idea is that the long-term goal is that the B Corp logo would become for a corporation the way the Good Housekeeping seal of approval was for products. That's a long ways away. We're not there today. There's just over 500 B Corps in the United States. On February 10th, there were 13 B Corps in the state of New York on the day that the law went into effect. In fact, my friend Maria here is a fellow B Corp, so you have 2 of the 13 in the room this morning. And the concept is that there's a lot of companies out there claiming that they do good things, but how real is that? There's no transparency around that. And so the difference is once you become, B Corp certified, and that's one of the things, even in the state of New York, you still need to, the state appoints a auditing agency so that you get audited potentially every 2 years, and so that the public can feel comfortable that they know that you are a good company and that you're not just using good marketing to kind of communicate something that you're not actually doing. So that, over time, we think this is going to become a very strong brand. two things that I think are interesting about this. People say, well, what's the big deal? Right now, today, 80% of the Fortune 500 are issuing sustainability reports. So anyone who thinks big business isn't paying attention to this isn't paying attention, because they are. 80% of consumers, if given of two products side by side, or of equal quality and equal price, but one is from a company that matches that consumer's values, that always will become the tiebreaker, and 80% of consumers will go that way. So went from a 20 years ago small movement to becoming much, much more mainstream. And so the B Corp legislation, I think, helps that process along. Final point, in the ceremony, Sheldon Silver, who is the Speaker of, the House in New York, was open to this suggestion, but that the idea, because B Corps are for benefit, in the city of Philadelphia, now Pennsylvania does not have a B Corp law, but there are certified B Corps there, will give preferential treatment from the city to B Corps that want to do business with the city. So I think over time you're going to see lots of other interesting benefits that will accrue from this. So I imagine, please hold your questions. I'll just move into kind of my next talk, because we'd probably take up the whole time with questions, but I'm sure I raised some. So Les didn't like the name of my talk because he didn't use it. It's the idea of conscious choices daily, creating balance on the path to prosperity. And so if something I want you to participate a little bit. If everyone would sit up straight, put both feet on the floor, hands on your knees. Now just close your eyes for a moment. Just a moment. Okay, you can open your eyes. Did anyone have any thoughts? I'm sure you all did. Psychologists tell us that we have, on average, 60,000 thoughts a day. If you kind of do the math, which I did, that comes out to about 40 thoughts a minute. Now that's why I'm up here talking, or Les was up here talking, and someone's thinking about, am I going to have Chinese food for lunch? Am I going to have, or you're thinking, there's all kinds of thoughts you can be thinking. What am I going to do when I get back to the office? But you're not being present as someone's up here talking. Have you ever found yourself, you sit down to read a paragraph, and you start reading it, and it makes you think of something, so you go off on a tangent, you come back, you reread the paragraph, another thought comes, you find yourself rereading that same paragraph 2 or 3 times? What we're talking about is how to be present in your life and showing up in a present way. And many of us struggle with this. Being an entrepreneurial founder, a solopreneur, an intrapreneur. I keep driving Les crazy because I want to walk and he wants me to stay here. But we're all on a hero's journey, which is classic. Les had 2 great things in his slide. One was a quote from Joseph Campbell, who is the real the person who discusses a hero's journey. So we're all on this hero's journey. But what's interesting is if you think you're going to get there focusing strictly on discussions around widgets or cash flow or what the marketing plan is going to be, I think you're mistaken. Success, in my observation from having been around a lot of very, very successful CEOs, that not that widgets and what you've invented or your product or service or all of those things aren't important. That's not my point. But my point is that your inner growth and how you show up and are present in your business life will have a huge impact on your success. So what do I mean by sort of being present? Well, first of all, it's be in your body. And what do I mean by that? If you're in your head and you're spinning off somewhere and you're thinking and you're off in some other place, you are not being present in your body. So, how do you bring yourself back? Just take a deep breath. Everyone, take a breath. And just come back. It's very simple. It's very gentle. But it's an ongoing process. This is, there's no quick fixes here. At the end of the talk, I'm not going to give you a magic bullet. But it's just gently come back to where you are. Let me give some examples, some very real-life examples of how you might apply this or think about this in your business life. You're out doing investment presentation, sales pitch, however you want to think about it. You sit down with your prospect, you do your thing. At the end, he says no. Well, you're so busy, you have all of these emotions well up into you. You go, how am I going to cover my mortgage? What's happening? You're spinning off in a million different places, and you miss the fact that he says no until we install, the converter box, then we might be interested. And you miss that, so you can't respond, oh, my best friend's having a special on converter boxes. Let me hook that up for you. Then I'll come back to you and we'll close the sale then. But you missed it because when he said no, he or she, that you spun off somewhere else. How about in a staff meeting? When someone challenges you, to a very, in a very confrontational way. My friend David here holds up his hands and goes, Ajax, everything you said is a bunch of BS. How do you react to that? Do you instantly well up and become defensive? Or do you take a breath? Do you center yourself calmly? And are you able to react to what he said and say, okay, let's deal with this in an appropriate manner? What's interesting is if you Google cash flow, just the term cash flow, you'll come up with well over 1 million responses, everything on how to deal with it, all sorts of things. What Google isn't going to help you with is if your cash flow is not positive and you're having to face the idea that maybe the kids aren't going to go to college or your wife's going to divorce you because, the bills aren't being paid. Those are the issues that we're talking about that are part of most any founder's life. So how do you stay present? How do you show up in those challenging times that allows you to kind of move through it in a present way? One of the things that's interesting is I'm guessing, and if anyone disagrees with me, this would be a time to hold up your hand, that any of you that have children would not suggest to your children that because they happen to be a really good basketball player, don't worry about your grades. Feel free to skip classes. You're going to be a pro player. We're going to put all your cards into that hand. Anyone tell their children that? Think that's a good idea? Probably not. Okay, fine. Rhetorical question. But what's interesting is when we look at business people who spend their entire focus on their company, they ignore their family. Divorce rates are out of hand. They ignore their health. And statistically, they're not ever going to get the big exit. Your chances of doing the big exit, going public, selling to a big company, are about the same as, becoming a pro ball player. Now, I'm not suggesting big exits are a bad thing. Please don't anywhere take that. But my point is, show up in your life in a present way and balance it and live it for the long term. One of the things that was really big around the new year was all this research done interviewing elderly folks, essentially on their deathbed. Not a single one of them suggested they spend more time, if they had to live their life over, they'd want to spend more time at the office. Now, so back to Les's comments about passion. So show up in your life and live it in kind of a very healthy way. And what's interesting, you don't hear this much in business settings because it's all about, work really hard, be a workaholic, get the big exit. Well, I'm kind of suggesting the other. Set yourself up so that you can have a long-term, successful career, but it's going to work for you over time. And I think a lot of us don't really think about that. So no quick fixes, just the concept of, in my opinion, if you show up and are present in your life, center yourself, take a breath, that lots of good things will come to you that you're not experiencing at the moment. Thank you. And I'd be thrilled to take questions because in this brief bit of time, I'm sure that I created more questions than I answered.
Let's limit it to about a half a dozen questions for now, and then you'll be around after the presentation as well.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions?
Either
Comments?
B Corp or the conscious choices. Patty.
If I'm an entrepreneur and maybe I know a little bit about B Corps but not a lot about B Corps, and I'm trying to decide, will choosing to be a B Corp benefit me? What are the benefits to an entrepreneur of choosing to go in that direction? And are there companies that should go in that direction and companies that should not go in that direction?
I don't know that there's any that shouldn't. I think it's unlikely that too many companies, existing companies, will transition. A few will. I certainly did, but I don't think a lot will. The benefits, at this stage, it's a lot of mavericks, people who believe in this in the long term. Like, I think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, being able to say I was a founding certified B Corp by B Lab, I was one of the first 13 in New York, that's going to have deep meaning going forward in the years into the future. And I'm really excited about that. But I'll give a real life example. I'm good friends with the head of sustainability for Aspen Ski Corp. Aspen Ski Corp, $100 million company, 3 ski areas, multiple hotels, other properties, owned by private equity, so very bottom line oriented. They, in their heart and soul, believe that if we don't turn around climate change, that their industry will evaporate. It'll be gone. And they're putting a lot of money into that because they believe that in their heart and soul. When I suggested that and introduced them to B Corp, they went through a whole process. And for them, at $100 million, their fee to be a B Corp annually is about $25,000. And the CEO said to my friend Auden, who reports to him, is there anything on that they're doing that we're not doing? And he said, no. He said, okay, let's spend that 25 grand somewhere else because the brand isn't there yet today. It will be, but it's not there today. So there was a CEO who made a hard decision saying, I can spend that 25 grand somewhere else. I think they will come back around at some point in the future as the brand strengthens. So I hope as a story that somewhat illuminates your question, Patty. So you have to decide where you are, I guess, on the ideological curve for now, and eventually it'll start making dollars and cents for folks to do it.
Any other questions?
Hi, Diane.
Hold on. You Don't wait for the mic. Got a whole group of people. This cyberspace want to hear your question.
I'm curious as to why you gave it the name the B Corporation. Maybe, I always felt disappointed if I didn't get straight A's, and a B was a bummer. So to me, that's kind of a turnoff. Is there rationale behind that?
I had nothing to do with naming it. I am just one of them. I kind of like the idea of, I have one of their shirts on underneath here, be the change. I happen to like it. If you don't like it, I don't know. It's kind of like S Corp or B Corp. I don't even know what S or B or C, thank you, stands for. So there you go. Yeah. Any other questions?
I was wondering, we talked about the benefit a little bit, but what are the disadvantages of doing it? Are you required to take a certain percentage of your profits towards a benefit? And is it restrictive in any way?
You're not required to do anything with profits. That strictly would be your choice. I personally take 2% of gross revenue kind of thing, but that's strictly my choice. Downside would be that you do have the potential. In other words, every 2 years they go through an audit process. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be audited every 2 years. I think they pick a sampling of the companies. But I have been audited because in my case, it was they came in, we sat for 2 hours, then went to lunch. I'm a pretty simple sort of audit. Now, my friends like at Icestone, which is a very industrial manufacturing company in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, they were there for 3 days. So, there is that downside. You do have to post the results of your, I guess of the, I don't want to say the audit, but I know, like right now, if you go to B Corporation, corporation written out, just the letter B, bcorporation.net is where you can find all this information. And right now, my score on the B survey is there for the public. And so you do have to publish your score, and you have to have a passing score to remain a B Corp, and it does get harder every 2 years, so it's not a flat level playing field. They keep making it more challenging. So if you were to say a downside, that could be it. I think most companies like that. So far, again, a lot of us are very ideological because it means there's no slackers in the club, so to speak.
We're going to take one more question, and then we're going to move on to the next part, but you're going to hang around.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. Secondly, you mentioned difficult people. I'm the CEO of a corporation, and it never ceases to amaze you how sometimes everybody has their own opinion, and our job is to try to get people's circles to overlap, get them to play nice with each other. But every now and then you'll come across somebody who thinks they know it all or is a very challenging person. So as much as you might say to that, you're not going to change their personality. So what would you do when you say, let's deal with this differently? Pull them aside? I'm sure there's a host of other strategies, but how do you keep them from being that one bad apple that would screw up the others?
I think there's lots of possible answers to that, but the main point of my talk was if they're coming at you in a very uncomfortable way that maybe brings up emotion in you, are you able to center yourself in a mindful way to be to not pour gas on the situation by reacting angrily and so forth, and so and that's doesn't preclude maybe they should be fired, they should be counseled, all sorts of other things. But my point was, in the moment, are you coming to them in a very open, authentic, heartfelt way, and then saying to them, you expect them to come back in that same way, and maybe that creates a healthy point of dialogue where you can both at least hear one another. I don't know whether you're going to agree or not, and you know, maybe you won't. But I think being present in emotionally charged situations really can help diffuse the charge, if you will, and bring it back down to where you can have human conversations. And I think at the end of the day, business is about we're all human. And if we don't engage with one another in that way, we are less effective.
Good job. Diane, we're going to do Greece first, and then we're going to come to you. Thanks, Ajax. Great presentation. I've got a meeting this afternoon that I'm going to try and center myself for. As I mentioned, we have a presentation this morning from our colleagues in Greece. And it's with Kostas. Good morning, Kostas. Uh-oh. Looks like Greece is in the ozone this morning. Okay. Costa, can you hear me? Ah, there's the master technician at work. Good morning. Nope, no sound. Turn your sound on. Nope. Nope. And he's been on. There he is. Now.
Okay.
Good morning, Andreas.
I would like to introduce,
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to introduce Kostas Parissis, one of the high growth entrepreneurs of Greece, and he will present to you a standard funds platform.
Okay. Good morning, Kostas.
Hello, everybody. From Greece. I hope you're all fine. There's a lag, so perhaps I won't be answering to your questions shortly. But you need to be a little patient with the connection.
We're always patient. We never know what's going to happen in Greece.
Actually, whenever you have to deal with Greece, you need to be patient. We don't actually follow this rule with Starters Fund because we're going rapidly. However, this is the case.
Uh-oh. So much for Greece. You there?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Listen to your questions. And probably it's the lack that I talked to you before that delays this communication a little.
Kostas, why don't you tell us about the Starters Fund? Starters Fund just went bust. How many of you have ever heard of crowdfunding? Anybody? Oh, a whole bunch of people. Okay. We're going to get them back online. You know, we've been hearing a lot from Andreas over the years that Greece is in a state of flux, which it is. If any of you have equities and stocks, you'll find yesterday wasn't a very happy day, and a lot of that was attributed to what's happening in Europe. But what they've been able to do is generate significant revenues from individuals to help fund early stage and seed stage companies in Greece. And this has kind of been contradictory to a lot of what we hear every day in the news about Greece. To the best of our knowledge right now, there are about 10 crowdfunding organizations that serve Europe. Oh, Costa, you with me?
Yes, hello, I'm back.
Okay. I'm just kind of going over some of the other crowdfunding organizations, and describing to the audience what you are doing in Greece with crowdfunding. So if you could pick it up, that would be great.
Well, yes. Well, let me start by saying a couple of things of sorry, about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding actually is it's not just a new way of making business. It's a revolution, and it's not a surprise that leaders with vision like your leaders there funding us as a solution to job creation for the United States. I'm very happy to hear that crowdfunding has become a central policy for your policymakers. And it's becoming a hot issue for the next elections in the United States because it just what it does is to help to help funds return to the real economy. And even for crowdfunding, not equity-based crowdfunding, when funds go to new ideas and young people usually, then it's money going back to real economy because our problem, the planet's problem, planet's financial problem at the time is that all the money, actually 70% of the money that circulate around the planet are locked to some funny named securities and derivatives and this kind of stuff that I wouldn't like to. Less than $1 million in assets. So apart from the accredited investors, the accredited investors 1 million.
God bless them.
Sorry, I had a delay and something returned back to me. I just keep from where I stopped. Now, what I was saying is that apart from accredited investors, nobody actually has. Oh God, sounds terrible. Nobody actually has access to equity-based crowdfunding in the United States. However, with our platform, which is hybrid, we do both donation-based and equity-based crowdfunding. Any European Union resident, any resident of the 27 European Union member states is able to participate in equity-based campaigns. So this is Starters Fund, the most sophisticated service to the day for equity-based crowdfunding, enabling also donation-based crowdfunding. And we're working hard to be ready for the United States in the next couple of months. We're working together with a great legal office in the United States. Actually, they're based in New York. It's EGS LLP, and we think that we're already close to a solution that will work for the United States as well, even before any of those 4 laws that are stockpiled before the Senate passes the Senate and becomes a law for the United States.
Line, so you'll be able to hear and see.
So I'm ready to answer to any questions you have regarding crowdfunding in general as a tool for financing small businesses or or crowdfunding through Starters Fund, which is about to open in the next 3 or 4 days. Starters Fund is already open. You can see some of its content.
Okay. How many companies do you anticipate working with in the coming year in Europe?
We have various kinds of predictions. Our lower estimates are around 10 to 15 successful crowdfunding projects being funded by the end of this year. However, our more optimistic predictions go for more than 40 projects being funded. If you take the average, the current average of the market, success rate of the market, then it means at least 400 equity-based projects before the end of this year.
And typically, what size are the investments in each company?
In donation-based crowdfunding, the average is around $100 to $150. In equity-based, we anticipate that to be a little higher, because actually we'll have a limit, a threshold of 100 euros per supporter per case. So it has to be at least 2,000 or 2,050 euros per project, per case. The least amount, the average amount that the crowd will offer to crowdfunding projects will input.
Now that doesn't seem like a lot of money to invest in each company. It just kind of gives them, in some cases, enough money to either prove their technology, prove their company. How do you? What's the ongoing funding stream from there? And do the investors participate in the second round?
Well, if you were talking about the total campaign target, then we have perhaps that was your question that I didn't hear or I didn't understand. Actually, a campaign. To us, a minimum crowdfunding, equity-based crowdfunding campaign starts at, and the maximum is 187.5 thousand. So for a first round, it's just enough money to start a business. That's why we're Starters Fund. We named the service like Starters Fund, as Starters Fund. Now, with that money, you can start a new company and running as as a taxi for the first year or so, but a successful company will have the option to come back for a second round, and the crowdfunding limit, the limit for crowdfunding in Europe is 2.5 million euros, meaning that unsolicited public offering of securities is limited to 2.5 million euros per case, without registering a project with any SEC, any Securities and Exchanges Commission. Beyond that, you need the registration or some other exemptions apply, and this limit is being raised for Europe to 5 million euros per case. So there is enough space for crowdfunding regarding second or even third round. For people being crowdfunded in Europe.
In addition to the funding, what other services do you provide the entrepreneur?
Actually, we used crowdfunding as a tool for creating an ecosystem, an online ecosystem for business growth, business birth and growth. Meaning that we have a VBI, a virtual business incubator aside, with lots of people and services that are actually being unlisted these days. They're not visible yet. We will also have a market with many tools, online business planning, online marketing planning, that will become available soon. Do you?
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
Oh, good. And this ecosystem is going to support business birth and growth from various perspectives. Crowdfunding is just the beginning. We will also have a crowdsourcing solution in the next couple of months. Our projection says that by mid-June, the latest, we will have also a crowdsourcing solution combined with crowdfunding and combined with a corporate social responsibility program that we also have in place. And what we want to build is a nest with everything in it, online.
Interesting. Any questions from the audience? Anybody have any questions about crowdfunding and what they're doing? Nope. Kostas, you're good?
Yes, I would suggest we have, for everybody who wants to go to startersfund.com, we have a very very interesting knowledge base where you can find some very helpful guidelines for creating a successful crowdfunding project, regardless of the solution the service that you will select. You can do it through our service or any other service. The same rules apply. So I suggest everybody to take a look at the knowledge base of startersfund.com.
We will pass the information along. Thank you very much for your presentation this morning, and you and I will get together when you're in New York shortly.
Thank you very much for this invitation. It was very nice talking to you, Les, and to the people there, and hope to see you soon.
Likewise. Take care, Kostas. Bye, Andreas.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Well, it's an interesting perspective, and it's something that's taking Europe by storm. Apparently, from my discussions earlier in the week and last week with Kostas, they've got about 300 to 400 people already interested in participating in the crowdfunding program that he's developed. Kostas is a lawyer in Greece, and everything is becoming internet-based, web-based, and it's a very exciting program. John, you got a question?
I have a question, yeah. In the U.S. market, with the compliance rules that have come up since 2008, Sarbanes-Oxley and so on, I think that there might be some problems with this, right, where people would run into restrictions because of these laws.
Yeah, the question that John asked was about U.S. restrictions and compliance with Sarbanes-Oxley, and it's an excellent point. One of the points that Kostas mentioned was that it's donation-based. So you can actually donate funds to a company. Yes, you can receive equity in return. There are some issues from time to time in receiving the equity. That does become problematic when it comes to some taxation for the individual, not necessarily for the company, but for the individual. But until the company reaches its next stage of growth, because of the limitations on the amount that's being donated, that does not enter into the early stage and does not interfere with Sarbanes-Oxley at this level. Once you get to that next level of funding, yes, there's a very definite complication.
What do you mean by the levels?
Well, in this case, they're only looking at about $1,500 to $1,800 as far as the level of donation. So it has, once it goes above a certain level, and I'm not sure what that level is, it becomes a Sarbanes-Oxley issue. Any other questions? Because that was a very, very good question. All right, let's move along. As part of our responsibility to Ulster County, to our home here, and environmental issues, I'd like to introduce Diane Dintroff. Diane is an IBM retiree, although you don't look old enough to be retired.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I coached him on that.
Yeah. It took a lot of sessions to do. You can use the microphone. Oh, use that one. I know it works. She's going to give you a presentation on something that's happening right here in our own backyard about the Esopus and the river and plants and some goblins, and take it away. They're going to switch it over to you right now. Just give us 1 second. There you go. We're getting there. Got it? Got it? You can start talking and we'll catch up.
When I first came to the region in 1980
No.
to join IBM,
Where's the presentation?
I absolutely, that's not mine.
No, I'll get it.
I absolutely fell in love with the Hudson River Valley. And I was fortunate enough to get a little house right above the Port Ewan Fair Beach. I could see the lighthouse, the train station, the Radcliffe Bridge in the background. But over the years, weeds started taking over. They were an invasive species, the water chestnut.
Oh, I'll get there. Hang on. Just give me a few minutes here. Keep talking. Let's see how you can dance.
And
I did well, thank you.
now last year was a really exciting year for the town of Esopus because it was our bicentennial. And as part of the bicentennial, we wanted to let people know how wonderful our waterfronts were and to come and enjoy our town. I have some brochures on the back that you can pick up if you become more interested when you see some of the sites that you can see from our waterfront beaches. But these water chestnuts developed, this is our problem, this little guy right here. This is a bull's head, a water chestnut seed, a fruit, a nut. And Chet, who's a member of our water chestnut harvesting crew, will show you what these are. He can just take one, throw them out, whatever,
It's the
when
display.
you're done.
There you go.
And you don't want to step on these when you go to our beaches because they're very, very hard. And they're not the water chestnuts in Chinese food.
All right, Diane, you're up.
You can make flour from them. We're good?
You're
Okay.
good.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Lovely little song. Clear water. That made an equation for successful harvesting of these and creating a recreational asset from these species, which was a problem to us previously. So by the end of this presentation, I hope that you'll understand what Chester could do, why it was important, and why it's important that we combat these bullheads. I want you to understand some of the support, the wonderful support that we've had from our town boards and from environmental groups in the community. The fact that we developed an elaborate plan, both for training volunteers within the town and for putting together reports on future harvesting and future work to be done in the town of Esopus. We not only solved the problem that we had in the Fair Beach area, but I submitted a slideshow and it won an international competition, $4,500 for a Waterfront Challenge contest for best improvement in the Northeast US. And we also won the Pride of Ulster County Award last week. So this is some of the organization behind it. Esopus is run by town boards. Our town supervisor is the financial officer, CEO. Any of the boards, including the waterfront board, can set up committees. During our bicentennial, the bicentennial committee was set up, And I became involved because I am the webmaster of the Yahoo group Kingston Paddle Pals. And I was asked to do things which would show the tourist attraction of our waterfront parks. And the Water Chestnut Harvesting Project developed both from the town board and the waterfront board. And I rearranged these, but because of technical difficulties, we didn't change the slides this morning. Now, there is really more than just the support from the town boards. There are incredible environmental groups in the community that I've been networking with, that I've really been talking about problems, you know, the problems of global warming, the problems of water purity. And because of contact with these groups, you really became aware that people need to learn not only about the fun things, the recreation in it, but also what the dangers are and what they can do as volunteers and community members to help solve some of these problems. So the plan that we developed, both for the water chestnut harvesting crew and as an informational slideshow, talked about how water quality was affected, quality of life of our residents, and hopefully will influence tourism and economy. Business groups in our community supported our bicentennial. We had Kenco, who published the kayaking brochure for the bicentennial, and Van Loans, who provided water. The library, the slide presentation on the historic Roundout Creek. The Maritime Museum, as part of their Follow the River lecture series, will see more of the slides that I had for the Waterfront Challenge submission. And again, so our plan for the water chestnut harvesting group was to improve water quality. You're going to see in some of these slides how these water chestnuts choke off all the natural vegetation. They use up the oxygen, so fish can't be under the water. Invertebrates, the turtles and some of the birds eat, can't survive there. But there's a way to get around this by creating borders in these water chestnuts, or channels, that mitigate the nitrogen that comes down from fertilizer and pesticides and other pollutants by making these channels in the water. And an important part of the harvesting program was to do it in a much more cost-effective way than other areas. Several of our neighboring states spend $500,000 or so a year fighting the water chestnuts. Now I'm going to give you a quick tour of some of the wonderful waterfront assets in Esopus. We're not just the town on the south of the Roundout that no one can spell. From the Freer Beach, you can see the Rhinecliff Lighthouse. But as you can see here, these water chestnuts have extended way out. This beach was entirely clear when I moved here. There was a swimming area. Miles Gordon held a sailing school and did man overboard exercises west of the Rhinecliff Lighthouse. Totally impossible to do now. I used to launch my rowing shells, sailboats, sailboards, kayaks. You can't get through this. Another one of Esopus's parks is Slightsburg, which is on the Roundout Creek. Again, you have to get channels to get through at high tide through the islands going into the Roundout from Esopus. This is the Esopus Meadows Lighthouse. You can see that little building there is the Esopus Meadows Lighthouse and a freighter going by. Again, here are these weeds. This is the Environmental Center at Esopus Meadows. Esopus Meadows also has a water trail site for people in small boats like kayaks coming down the river for staying overnight. The turtles eat protein sources in the water. This is early in the spring when they're sunning themselves and before the water chestnuts have really taken over. Esopus Meadows is called a meadow because this is green all the way out to the lighthouse. This gives you a picture, this is back at Freer Beach, how thick these things are. And one of the reasons they're so thick, I need to flash ahead a couple slides here. Oh, where is it? Okay. Is that these things have flotation bulbs underneath them, which enable them to float on the surface of the water so that everything below them is choked off. Now, it's more than the 17 miles of Esopus waterfront that's affected by this. Here we were trying to launch from Wappingers Creek. Again, a sea of water chestnuts. And it's even more than just the Hudson Valley. It's all the northeastern and mid-Atlantic states. And you have to ask, why has this problem gotten so bad so fast? And it's because these things multiply like worse than bunnies. It is estimated, and they last for 12 years, those hard little seeds. 1 acre of water chestnuts potentially produces enough of those seeds to cover 100 acres the following year. And then, to make matters worse, they spread by several different ways. I can't count the number of times I've seen kayakers pull up water chestnuts and drop them in, thinking they're helping the problem, but they're actually spreading it by cuttings. Now, this is how many, many areas still harvest water chestnuts, and how we did it for a couple years when we were having problems with our own old water chestnut harvester. Given the previous stats, you can see this is not going to even put a dent in the problem. Then Chester came along. I'm going to go back one. Then this woman right here, Marion Zimmer, wrote a Hudson River Estuary grant and got funding for Chester, our water chestnut harvester. 10,000 pounds of water chestnuts can be cut in 30 minutes. Big improvement. But this is a big, big machine, and people had to be trained to use it. We developed the cutting plan showing where we wanted channels in order to improve the water quality. We developed a plan on how to get out to the Hudson River from Freer Beach. The efforts in 2011 focused on the northern section of the Esopus waterfront. We had the plan, we had a video, we had our town supervisor doing ground training. And then here I am, very macho, running the big rig, being trained by our volunteer supervisor, Carol Carson, and her husband, Jim. And here was the result at Freer Beach. There was a big wide stretch here giving access to the river and these wonderful channels. Now, these channels made it possible so that we ran a kayak scavenger hunt during the Great Hudson River Paddle. When we did a lighthouse tour, kayakers often want to see the 2 lighthouses. You know, we paddled around in there. They offer a break in rough waters and wind from the Hudson River for smaller boats. Oops, wrong way. We saw an increase. Our swans hadn't been here for a few years. They came back. The water in these channels became so clear that I actually saw fish in the channels. I've rarely seen fish in the Hudson because of the water quality. We had a pair of osprey move into the area and also increased bald eagle activity because the fish could now survive in front of the beach area. And at the end of the session, we did brainstorming, what do we want to do after this point? And here we are back at the Environmental Center in Esopus Meadows, which is the southern end of Esopus. which we hope to do more work on next season so that people can get to the water trail, so that they can get into Black Creek and the other recreational areas. And again, part of the reason I did this is we always need volunteers for our harvester, and I have a sign-up sheet back there. If you know of anyone who's interested, at any time I'm willing to give a presentation on this. The usual presentation is more tourism focused than the initial organizational diagram charts. And then I also have one on the historic Roundup Creek, and I'm working one for festivals along the Hudson. And if you want to get into kayaking, my Paddle Pet group is essentially a site that I set up to make social networking easier for kayakers in the Mid-Hudson Valley.
Good job.
And that's it.
Good job. Well, yeah, you like that one, huh? Yes. Go ahead.
Number one, is Chester leased to your town, or do you own that machine?
We got it through a grant from the Hudson River Estuary Program. The Bruderhof matched the funds for the program, and we traded in. We got some money from the old harvester that broke down.
So
We own it.
You own it, okay.
Yes.
So is there a possibility you could lease that out to other towns, to you?
They did talk about that last year, and you take that up with John Coulthard, our town supervisor. I think there is a possibility,
And
but that's
the second
not mine.
question I have is there any way to use the water chestnut's floor, not the leaves or something, in compost, or use it in another way? It must be very hard to get rid of if you can't recycle it or something.
I certainly would think that you might. I'm not an expert on this, but these things, when you bring them to the land, they start to rot very, very quickly. And they're very smelly and nasty, so they're hauled away. So I would expect them to be useful as a fertilizer, but I guess it hasn't been done yet. And again, you have the little nuts. Yes, Jeff?
They did try that, and it proved to be totally useless as some composting for. They did try that.
Huh.
If anybody can figure out what to do with these things, you can make a fortune.
They say you can make a flour out of it, but if you handle those nuts, they're very hard to get into and not really all that big.
Are the nuts separated during the process from
Let me go out here.
themselves?
You can only harvest these before the nuts are formed. We have to stop harvesting once they're formed because there's too much of a risk of spreading them.
You had a question here?
How far inland and how much of the coast is invaded with these water chestnuts?
Yeah, there's another one here.
It is all over the place in the northeastern and mid-Atlantic states. And for example, like Chautauqua, where our blue heron rookery is, it's starting to get spread into there, possibly carried on boats and fishermen's water buckets, or even attached to feathers or fur in animal fur. It's very hard to stop, and it's anywhere where there is water, it can get.
Does your gadget destroy this pod?
The pod isn't formed at the time that we cut it. We cut it so that they aren't produced. We stop the reproduction of those pods. But since they last for 12 years, they're in muck. They survive on land, water, in muck.
What support have you gotten from New York State EPA or DEC?
I don't personally know the answer for that. You know, I imagine the Hudson River Estuary Program is part of that.
Be something to look into, I would imagine. I mean, there are areas around the country where we've been invaded by certain species of fish and other plant life, which seems to be a growing concern to both state and federal agencies. And I think this might be an issue that you might want to address.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too.
Do you know where they came from?
Eastern Europe and Asia. They were brought
Just like
over
all of us.
to be flowering vegetation and decorative ornamentation in ponds.
Great. Diane, thank you so much for your presentation. It was great. Thank you. Use the steps. Well, let me help you down.
Okay.
How's that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you've wasted another perfectly good 2 hours this morning. We have networking afterwards. You don't have to run off. There's still some food left. I imagine there's still coffee left. We thank you very much for coming. Floyd, did you have a question?
Actually, a comment, Les. Of all the things we could have done today, you said we wasted 2 hours. I don't agree with you.
I get that from Click and Clack every Saturday morning, so.
Actually, what I'd like to do is, I say this every time I come here, I'm always amazed at the array of things you have, like today, this young lady here. And when they said we don't really need any slides and so forth in some other presentation, that's actually not quite true, because that one picture you showed there of all those things pervasive across the water, it really sends the message home. And visualization is 85% of learning. But on a grand scale, Les, you've arranged this, you've arranged these speakers, the guy there about the B Corp and the people from Europe and so forth. So I think you're really to be commended for doing your best to change the world.
Thank you very much. Well, this is a fun project, you know, and I would love to take some input from the audience, as always, because, you know, coming up with new speakers every month becomes challenging. And so if anybody has ideas or would like to be a presenter here, we'd love to have you. So just step up and we'll see what we can get done. Thank you very much for coming. We certainly appreciate it. Have a productive day. Thank you to our worldwide audience for tuning in this morning, and we hope to see everybody next month. Thank you. Take care.